Hello everybody, Raven Knight here, and welcome back to our series going through the book of Ruth. I hope you guys are as excited as I am. Today is going to be our first real day going through the book. If you wouldn't mind turning in your Bible to the book of Ruth, chapter 1, you'll find Ruth nestled between the book of Judges and the book of 1 Samuel. It's in the Old Testament, and you got to be careful. Ruth is a very small book of the Bible. It's only 4 chapters long, but it is incredibly powerful and incredibly meaningful. In fact, I would go so far as to say that Ruth is one of the most overlooked books of the Bible. There are so many people who just do not recognize the powerful messages that Ruth has to share with us, and I cannot wait to get into this. Before we get started, and while I give you guys time to get there, I want to talk to you about a couple things that Ruth is going to be teaching us, especially today, and how it can apply to us in our day-to-day lives. One thing that I do not want you guys to think is that Old Testament stories like these are fake, silly little fables. First of all of these are real. These are real people, real things happen to them. All that we're reading here is truth, right? That's the first thing. But the second thing that you need to understand is that they all have something to tell us. The Bible teaches us that all of the scripture shared is important for teaching us. Every book of the Bible has something important to teach us, and Ruth is no exception. And today what we're going to be talking about is what happens when we go down a trail of trouble. Because that is what Naomi and Ruth and Orpah, another character we'll be talking about today, are facing. So we're going to rehash a little bit about what we talked about last time, and then we're going to go deeper into the scripture today. So if you'll follow along with me, you should be on Ruth chapter 1 by now, and if you're not, just follow along as best you can. We're going to read this together, and let's jump right in. Chapter 1, verse 1 of Ruth. In the days when the judges ruled, there was a famine in the land. So a man from Bethlehem in Judah, together with his wife and 2 sons, went to live for a while in the country of Moab. The man's name was Elimelech. His wife's name was Naomi, and the names of his 2 sons were Mahlon and Chilion. They were Ephrathites from Bethlehem, Judah, and they went to Moab and lived there. Now Elimelech, Naomi's husband, died, and she was left with her 2 sons. They married Moabite women, one named Orpah and the other Ruth. After they'd lived there about 10 years, both Mahlon and Chilion also died, and Naomi was left without her 2 sons and her husband. Okay, let's pause there for just a minute. That's what we read last time, but I want to dive back into what we're reading here. It is so important that we understand what Naomi is going through. I know this is called the book of Ruth, and we got a lot to talk about with Ruth, but we cannot talk about Ruth without fundamentally understanding what Naomi went through. Now, some of you may say, if you have in-laws, if you are married and have in-laws, your in-laws are probably not people you're super close to. But Naomi and Ruth had a very, very close relationship. And so when talking about Ruth's story, you can't discuss it without discussing Naomi. So let's talk about what Naomi's dealing with. First of all, it is the time of the Judges. And if you don't know anything about the time of the Judges, it is essentially a time of turmoil for Israel. They have no king. They are completely a theocracy. They follow God, or they're supposed to, but they constantly keep flip-flopping away from God, running away to pagan idols, running away to false gods, trying to do what their neighbors are doing. So God abandons them because that's the old covenant. God told them, if you do what I say and follow my laws and make me your God, I will take care of you. Well, that's great for a little while until the human eye wanders, and then God backs off. They get held up, they get taken over by enemy tribes or groups, and thus they become enslaved or in servitude to these enemy tribes. God comes in and saves them through the work of a judge. It's a whole thing. So that's the time we're living in. Well, a famine has just hit, so Elimelech, Naomi's husband, takes his 2 sons and his wife and says, you know what, guys? We're done with Bethlehem, we're done with Israel, we're running away to Moab, which is a land of our enemies. It's the land of the enemy, the Moabites. We're going to go and hang out over there until all this gets better. And while they're over there, not only does Elimelech die, but 10 years after he dies, both of his sons die. Naomi has lost her husband and her 2 sons in the 10 years that she has spent over in Moab. The only thing she has left are her 2 daughters-in-law, Orpah and Ruth. This is what we call a trail of trouble. And I think we all can recognize when we're going down a trail of trouble. Some of you might be walking down that today. Some of you have probably looked on the past few months or years of your life and said, yeah, I'm kind of in a trail of trouble. I'm losing a lot more than I think I should be losing. I'm suffering and struggling and having a really hard time moving forward. So what do we do when we go down a trail of trouble? When we face trouble, well, there are 3 ways we can respond to it. There are 3 ways we can respond to it. 2 ways are not very good ways. The third way is the right way. So let's talk about this, and we can see this in a lot of what they're doing. So first of all, the first way we can deal with trouble is we can endure it. We can try to endure the trouble. Now that sounds good on the surface. That sounds like a good thing. Enduring sounds like a good thing, but when you think about what endurance is, it's putting your head down and forcing your way through. Now that takes strength, it really does, but the problem is you're becoming a slave to your troubles. When you choose to endure it, you're basically gritting your teeth, pushing through, and hoping that you get to the other side. The problem is eventually you're going to break. Eventually you're going to break, and even if you do somehow get through them, you're a harder and not as good a person to be around. Because when you give yourselves over to your troubles and let them rule you and determine your attitude, your behavior, and everything else, even if you get through that first trail of trouble, you're going to go down another. It happens more often than we think. Endurance is not always the way to go, especially if you don't have Christ in your life. The second way is we can escape, and we see that's what Elimelech tried to do. Elimelech tried to escape his problems. Israel's going through a lot of trouble. We got a famine right now. We've got no real leadership in Israel. Everything's going to heck. What do? We're going to run away from our troubles. We're going to run away from that. That's not a good idea either. It is not a good idea to run away from your troubles, because inevitably your troubles are going to find you. You're down and out. You're in poverty right now. Running away from it isn't going to solve that. You're having troubles in your relationships or with your wife or husband or with your girlfriend or boyfriend. Running away from that isn't going to solve it. You cannot run away from your problems, because eventually you will confront them. Running away does not fix a dang thing. In fact, quite often it means you run into even more trouble. But there's a third option, and this is the right option. We can embrace the trouble. Now that sounds really weird. Why would I want to embrace my troubles? I'll tell you why. Because embracing your troubles is recognizing that they exist and recognizing that God is higher than your troubles. Embracing your troubles means, look, I know I'm in a rough spot. I'm having a very hard time, but I trust that God has a plan for me in His infinite wisdom, and I'm going to overcome it. I'm going to get through this. That's embracing your trouble. Now, does that mean that trouble feels good? No, of course it doesn't. Does that mean that we should enjoy our troubles? No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is we don't run from the trouble and we don't grit our teeth and headbutt our troubles constantly. We say, I am facing a lot, but I'm going to give it to God, and I'm going to keep moving forward as God leads me through it. Here's the funny thing. You ever hear this line, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death? It's a very popular psalm. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. What's the first thing about that line that we hear? Though I walk through. No, I don't sprint through. I don't tear up the valley. I don't try to go around the valley. I walk through the valley. You're going to go through that valley of death. You're going to go through the hard times. But you walk through it with God by your side. That is embracing the trouble. Now, what did Elimelech do? He tried to escape his trouble. Well, now Naomi has lost her husband and her sons. What's she going to do with her troubles? What's she going to do with them? Is she going to embrace them? Try to escape them? Or is she going to endure them? Let's find out. Let's keep reading. We're picking up in verse 6. So this is after she has lost her sons. All she has left are her two daughters-in-law, Orpah and Ruth. And I'm going to try my best not to say Oprah. I know it sounds like that, but it is Orpah. Okay. When Naomi heard in Moab that the Lord had come to the aid of His people by providing food for them, she and her daughters-in-law prepared to return home from there. With her two daughters-in-law, she left the place where she had been living and set out on the road, and they would take them back to the land of Judah. Then Naomi said to her daughters-in-law, listen to this, guys. Go back, each of you, to your mother's home. May the Lord show you kindness as you have shown kindness to your dead husbands and to me. May the Lord grant that each of you will find rest to the home of another husband. Then she kissed them goodbye, and they wept aloud and said to her, we will go back with you to your people. But Naomi said, return home, my daughters. Why would you come with me? Am I going to have any more sons who would become your husbands? Return home, my daughters. I am too old to have another husband. Even if I thought there was still hope for me, even if I had a husband tonight and then gave birth to sons, would you wait until they grew up? Would you remain unmarried for them? No, my daughters, it is more bitter for me than for you, because the Lord's hand has turned against me. Now let's pause there and really analyze what Naomi has done. Which of the three has she done? Has she endured, escaped, or embraced her troubles? Well, partly she's escaping. Right now she's in Moab. She's lost her sons and her husband. She's now a widow. Now you need to understand what it means to be a widow in this time. We do not have a lot of care for women at this time. It's going to sound awful, but women didn't have a lot of rights or privileges at this point in time. If a woman was widowed, it was her husband's family that took care of her. But right now she doesn't have a husband's family very much, does she? Her sons are dead. Her husband's dead. She doesn't have anything. She's in the land of the Moabites, where she has no capital. She has no property there. She has to go home and take whatever property she can back in Israel, where her husband used to live. Now, what about Ruth and Orpah? They've got it even worse, because their husbands are dead. They married Israelites. They're not going to get that kind of luck if they go with Naomi back to Israel, because a lot of the Israelites are not going to want to do this. You got to realize the two sons, Milion and Kilion, marrying Moabite women is against God's law. You're not supposed to marry outside the Israelites according to God's law. So if they follow her home, the best chance they have is that she somehow has sons who they can marry again, but they've got to wait all that time to marry those sons. Naomi is essentially saying, why would you follow me? You're not going to get anything from me. I can't give you anything worthwhile. I am useless. I'm going to die alone. I'm not going to remarry. I'm going back to Israel to be in the land of my fathers and hopefully get some food. You should go back to Moab, marry some young men in Moab, leave me behind. You remember how I said that endurance leads to more problems in the future? Right now, Naomi has stuck her head down and she's ramming into her troubles at full force. She's basically saying, I'm going back. I'm going to push my way through these troubles. I'm going to push my way through it. Get out of it. Get out of my way. She's not embracing these, and we'll see more of that in a minute. But let's watch the women's reaction. Let's watch how Orpah and Ruth react to that. At this, they wept aloud again. Then Orpah kissed her mother-in-law goodbye, but Ruth clung to her. Look, said Naomi, your sister-in-law is going back to her people and her gods. Go back with her. But Ruth replied, don't urge me to leave your side or to turn back from you. Where you go, I will go, and where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. May the Lord deal with me, be it ever so severely, if even death separates you and me. When Naomi realized that Ruth was determined to go with her, she stopped urging her. What a declaration from Ruth. This is a huge declaration, and we're going to touch on it, but let's finish reading the chapter, and then we're going to come back to this, okay? But keep that declaration in the back of your mind. We're going to touch on it. So the two women went on until they came to Bethlehem. When they arrived in Bethlehem, the whole town was stirred because of them, and the women exclaimed, can this be Naomi? Don't call me Naomi, she told them. Call me Mara, because the Almighty has made my life very bitter. I went away full, but the Lord has brought me back empty. Why call me Naomi? The Lord has afflicted me. The Almighty has brought misfortune upon me. So Naomi returned from Moab, accompanied by Ruth the Moabite, her daughter-in-law, arriving in Bethlehem as the barley harvest was beginning. So, couple things that I want to touch on there. We are going to come back to Ruth's declaration, but what I want to really do is ask you this question based on Ruth's declaration. What kind of reaction did Ruth have to trouble? Did she endure, escape, or embrace? She embraced it. She's not going to run away from this trouble. It'd be so easier for her to just go, yeah, I'm just going back to Moab. Easier to get out of this problem. I'm going back to Moab. Or she could endure it like Naomi and say, I curse everything about this. I curse everything that's happened to me. But you know what? Screw it all. I'm just going to do what I want to do. No. What is the one thing Ruth says that Naomi has not said yet? Your Lord will be my Lord. Your people will be my people. The Lord deal with me severely if I leave your side. The Lord deal with me if I don't deal with this. She trusts in the Lord. She's a foreigner. She's not an Israelite. She hasn't been raised on the Bible. She hasn't been raised on the Torah. She hasn't been raised in a synagogue. She doesn't know anything about this kind of stuff. And yet she has such a love and passion for Naomi, her people, and the Lord. She says, the Lord deal with me if I leave your side. She knows her responsibilities and she embraces it anyway. What this first chapter is, it is the faith story of three women, of Orpah, of Ruth, and Naomi. It is the faith story of these three women, and to close out today, what I want to do is I want to explain the faith journey of these three women. Let's start with Orpah. Orpah rejected God and walked away. Orpah rejected God and walked away. She escaped. She ran away from her troubles. Right now, Orpah, and look, I don't want to be too hard on the girl. Orpah had every right to do this. She's going to have it rough. Orpah was a Moabite woman, married an Israelite man who ran away from Israel. He was already doing wrong by doing this. She married him. 10 years of happiness. Now he's gone. She has no husband. She has no capital. She has no one to take care of her. And Naomi has just told her, hey, I'm going back to Israel. You shouldn't come with me because I can't provide for you in Israel, and many of the Israelites will not accept you because you're a Moabite. Believe me, they won't like you there. You should go back to your gods. You should go back to your life. You should go back to find someone who can take care of you. And she said, you know what? You're right. Now, it was sad. She wasn't happy about it, but she made her choice. Between going back home with you and suffering more hardship, I'm not going to devote myself to you or to your God or to your people. I'm going to go my own way. And she did. She escaped the problem. She rejected God and walked away. Now let's look at Naomi. Naomi blamed God and became bitter. She blamed God and became bitter. Listen to what she says near the end. She says, don't call me Naomi. Call me Mara, because the Almighty has made my life very bitter. What does that mean? Naomi, when translated from Hebrew, means pleasant or joyful. Mara means bitter or resentful or angry. She says, don't call me Naomi anymore. I'm not pleasant. I'm not happy. I'm bitter. Why is she bitter? Because the Almighty has made my life very bitter. I went away full, but the Lord has brought me back empty. Why call me Naomi? The Lord has afflicted me. The Almighty has brought misfortune upon me. She blamed God and became bitter. Now let's think about something for a second, guys. Do you ever blame God? Do you ever blame God for your problems? I'm going to tell you a little story. I have an uncle, love him to death. Love him to death. He's a great guy. When his father passed away, he blamed God. He was mad. He blamed God for his loss. And you know what? I'll be honest. I have blamed God. I have been very angry with God in the past. I've been very upset with God because I feel like sometimes the things he's done in my life just feel unfair. We have this tendency to get very dejected with God and get very angry and say, God, how could you let this happen to me? And we become bitter as a result. Why? Because when we put all of our faith down on the table and say, God, make me happy, and God doesn't make me happy when I want to be happy, we say, well, God, it's your fault that I'm not happy. Naomi blamed God and became bitter, so when she faced her trouble, she just endured it. Now, you'll notice she didn't curse God. She didn't curse God's name. She didn't shout curses at God. She didn't defame him or anything of that nature. She simply said, I am not pleasant. God has abandoned me. But she still came home, and she's still going to push through it, but she is a bitter person. Remember what I said? Endurance sounds cool. Endurance sounds like, yeah, I'm going to be tough. I'm going to get through my problems. Yeah, I'm going to fight my way through. But quite often, endurance means that we just become bitter people. Because we're taking on that pain and thinking it's, God's abandoned me. God's not helping me. I'm just going to do it myself. And we wallow in our bitterness and anger, and that's exactly what Naomi's doing. How many of you guys are like that? Really think about that. And this isn't me calling you out or blaming you. I think a lot of us as Christians fall into this category. In fact, of these three women, I think most Christians fall under the Naomi category. We don't reject God like Orpah did, but we sure are ready to blame God when things don't go our way. I think that's what leads a lot of people away from the church, because they expect God to give us things. You know, the good news ministry, we're going to give you happiness as long as you do this. No, that's not how Christianity works. That's not how it ever works. But Naomi kind of expected it to work that way. And it did. And now for the third woman, Ruth. Ruth trusted God and persevered. Ruth trusted God and persevered. Let's think for a moment about what Ruth did here. Ruth is in the same boat as Orpah, the exact same boat as Orpah. She has no father-in-law. Her people have pretty much abandoned her because she's in an Israelite family. Her husband is dead. The only woman she has in her life, the only family member she has is Naomi, her mother-in-law. Her mother-in-law is now bitter and dejected. Her sister-in-law has just gone back to Moab to go hopefully find a new husband to take care of her. She's going to Israel, which is just coming out of a famine. And Israel is not going to like her because she's a Moabite. She is not Israelite. In all honesty, she should be miserable and angry and dejected. She has every right to do what Orpah did and walk away. But what does she say when Naomi points this out, saying, go back to your gods. Go back to your people. Go back to the way you used to live before you even knew me. Just go back. You don't deserve to go through this. What does she say? The Lord deal with me, however severely, if I leave your side. Here's why. Because it is the daughter-in-law's job to take care of the mother-in-law. And she recognizes that part of her life. She says, I love you. You're my family. And I want to take care of you. I want to be here with you. That is the law of your Lord, and it is your Lord that I've come to love. I'm not leaving you because I've fallen in love with your God, your people, your lifestyle. She even said, and some of you might say, no, it's because she just wanted the chance to stay with Naomi. For what? Let's be real honest here. Staying with Naomi was not selfish, it was selfless. Selfishness would do what Orpah did and just go back home. Listen to what she says. I want to go back. I told you I was going back to it. When she says, Ruth replied, don't urge me to leave you or turn my back from you. Where you go, I will go. Where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God, my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. May the Lord deal with me, be it ever so severely, if even death separates you and me. Guys, you don't make that kind of commitment just offhand. You don't make that kind of promise offhand. In that one declaration, Ruth has abandoned her old life, her old family, her old gods, her old sinful lifestyle, and said, I want what you have. I want to be with you because you're my family, you're my mother, and the Lord deal with me if even death separates us. That's commitment. She trusted in God, trusted in Him. And what happened? She was not bitter. She embraced the trouble. She embraced the struggle. I've been talking for a while about my old boss, Jodan at Longhorns. And I was talking to him just the other day, and he's been going through hell in a handbasket, guys. The good news is that he didn't get fired. That's excellent news. But the bad news is the people who tried to get him fired are still trying, and he's doing his best to fight that battle. And I can see it in his face. He's worn out. And he admitted to me when we were talking about it, he's trying to endure this. But it's made him sad, bitter, frustrated. I told him everything I just told you guys. Because that day he told me this was the day I was doing this reading. And I told him what I'd learned about Ruth. And he said, you know what, man? Maybe I need to learn to embrace this a bit more. Now, I don't know if he did. And I'm not saying that I changed his life in that moment. But guys, I don't want you... Whatever you walk away with today, walk away with two things. Just two things. The first, The stories you hear in the Old Testament are not just silly Bible school stories. They're not made up stories just to make us feel good. They're true events about real people and what they went through, struggled with, and overcame. Ruth is not some nobody woman from Moab who just happened to stumble into Israel. Do you know who Ruth is? She is an ancestor of Jesus and the great-grandmother of King David. Ruth is not no one. Ruth is not a made-up woman. Second, these stories, these events, teach us things. Teach us things that we can apply to today's life if we only take the time to learn from them. When you go through troubles, and don't act like you won't, if you're not going through it now, you will. What will you do? Will you put your head down, grind your teeth, and charge forward like a bull? And you might get through it, but you won't be the same person on the other side. Will you just endure it? Will you try to run away from it, try to escape, try to get to somewhere more comfortable and more safe? Or will you embrace it? Will you reject God and walk away? Will you blame God and become bitter? Or will you trust God and overcome? That is the question I leave you with today. Thank you guys so much for following this with me. We got through the first chapter of the book of Ruth. We got 3 more to go. Guys, there is so much to learn about here. I can't wait to get through this with you guys. But that's for next time. I'll see you next Sunday. Take care, guys.